I think it's a misconception that this is a technology revolution. It's kind of an experience revolution. Like, what is the new world going to look like? It's not about technology. It's about the problems that we're going to solve. Software ate the world.
Right.
So every place where that software is touching something, there's probably an AI opportunity. And AI is going to eat all the software that ate the world.
I like that. AI will eat the software that ate the world. Welcome to AI Truth Serum, your weekly antidote to the hype and doom of AI. I'm your host, Greg Shove, 7-time Silicon Valley founder and the CEO of Section AI. This episode, I'm chatting with Edmundo Ortega. Ed, founding partner at Machine & Partners, former head of product at Section, and a longtime friend and collaborator of mine. Ed's done it all. He's a vet. He's been a designer. He's been a storyteller. He's been a business strategist. He's been a hacker builder. And now he's an AI genius, helping big companies redesign human workflows with AI, basically agents. And he understands how hard it is to build agents that actually work. So I want to use this conversation with Ed to understand what's in the way of leveraging inference and turning it into business value. Ed will share some of his key frameworks that he uses for leaders to assess AI projects for their viability and value. Edmundo, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So for the audience, Ed is one of my most brilliant friends. His range is extraordinary in that he can build the house that he's currently living in with his family, play tennis, build AI applications, design, code. So Ed and I have known each other for 15 years and have worked with each other on and off over that time. And Ed was our head of product at Section a couple of years ago. And then he and I started Machine & Partners together, an AI development lab. I can't remember who introduced us, but you were the guy that created my first wireframes or mock-ups. And I remember just being blown away by how quickly you could sort of understand the business requirements and make it look good. And you could basically tell me what was possible and what wasn't possible in terms of sort of what the technology could or couldn't do. How do we get from there to this moment? And why are this guy helping big companies figure out how to build agents that augment humans?
So it was a mix of engineering and design, but all to serve the experience. And so I think that basic through line has served me well throughout my career. The interesting about AI was that it evoked in me the old days of 1996, 1994, when the web was first coming out and we didn't know how to do anything. We didn't know what e-commerce was. We didn't know what Salesforce was. Those things hadn't been invented yet. So the whole world was being redesigned around this new capability that we had of this interconnection and email and web interfaces and all that stuff. Everyone was trying to figure out how to do something with this tech that wasn't always clear what the answer was. And it's just like that now. Now we have AI and it's like, what do we do with this, right? And people are trying all kinds of wild things. Some of it's failing, some of it's sticking. I think we're still 4 or 5 years from getting those basic ingredients, the basic playbook that we're going to need to be productive. It's not that coding necessarily is getting more efficient. It's not like we're recreating the process, but we're just doing it with AI. Mm-hmm. We're changing the process. So the way that we create code now is different from how we did it before. I think it's a misconception that this is a technology revolution, but really it's kind of an experience revolution. Like, what is the new world going to look like? It's not about technology. It's about the problems that we're going to solve and the new experiences that we're going to create for people, the new experiences that are enabled by that technology.
Yeah, I think that's your superpower, Ed, and probably why your clients love you, which is that you have that amount of experience in terms of building stuff and figuring stuff out, but you still bring this sort of really enthusiastic curiosity. You're still a teenager at heart, I think, as it relates to some of this stuff. I think that's kind of your superpower, because I think you need both.
I got to come on your podcast more often because you're so nice to me and you say all these nice things about me.
Ed, you've been building AI applications, which is why I wanted to talk to you, for yourself and, of course, for others, like industrial strength applications, essentially agents that really do work as opposed to bullshit agents or overhyped agents. So I want to really tap into your experience in terms of how do particularly existing organizations, startups as well, but I think it's so much harder for legacy firms or incumbents to build these kinds of agents using these technologies. So I really want to understand why and how to clear the path to actually get some of this technology to work inside an existing workflow, an existing team, and actually generate some economic value, not just a press release. So let's go back to go forward. when was your mind blown with AI? When was the moment you're like, okay, this is not just a better way to get a recipe, but this will change how work gets done?
I mean, I think I was like everyone else impressed with, the first iterations of ChatGPT where you could see language creation in a way that had never been possible with AI before. So AI has always been clunky with language, and you can think about Siri and Alexa as examples of this, where you really can't have a conversation with Siri or Alexa. So seeing this natural flow and what seemed like understanding from the machine when you're interacting with it was one of the first indicators. But it was actually code generation was the thing that blew my mind, where I was like, oh crap, the lid's going to come off this thing, because that's very helpful. And it started with like command completion, where you would start typing a line and then it would finish the line for you. And then it evolved quickly to you type in a comment and it would write a whole function for you. And it was like good. Basically, everything that's happened since then is just essentially like an evolution of that, right? Where the AI is actually performing stuff for us as we would have done, and maybe even better.
So when I think about AI for software engineers, basically like writing code, my sense of this a year ago was it was great for startup engineers, and everybody else was still like, it's not that useful, or it's not that good with legacy code bases, or, it's good for debugging or documentation, but not really good for writing good code. That seems to have changed, and really recently. Is that right? Like, what's gone on in your mind and what's happening?
So there's two things. One thing that non-coders don't understand is that software engineering is not actually about writing code. Software engineering is about thinking and architecting systems. So what you're trying to do is figure out, how do you solve a problem with code? And the code is just the artifact that you create in order to come up with that solution, right? That really has not changed that much. You still need a person who can think through these problems. If it's the same problem that we've solved 1,000 times, authentication, CMS,
building a website, right?
Building a website, all those patterns. We've done that 1,000 times. There's a million examples of solving those kinds of problems. And so that kind of thinking is done. The AI can do it, do a really good job at it. But when you have a more novel problem that you're facing, this is where the AI still continues to fall down, and you need a human being, a thinker who really understands the problem and can think through novel solutions. But what's changed in the last really like 3-4 months, especially with Claude Code, is the ability for the AI to understand the context of the project. So before, we had these context windows that were relatively short, right? And if you look at a code base for an existing product, it can be very big. It's too much to shove into the AI in a prompt to say, here's what's going on with this project. Now you write the next section, right? It's too much. So what Claude Code did, which was really innovative, was it said, okay, I'm not going to try and stuff all that context into the window. I'm actually going to use good old-fashioned search. And you tell me what you want to do, and I'm going to search through the product, not using AI, essentially, find all the bits that I think are relevant, and then I'm going to take that and stuff that into the context to solve the problem. And that one little change had a huge impact. That's one piece. And then the other piece is, beyond just writing code, Claude Code also gives the AI access to your computer. So it can run commands to do meta coding. It can create like its own little environment to run code and try things out, and then learn from that and then stick that into your code base. It can go do web searches. So all these other tools that are beyond just writing the code, but help in that process of creating something. So you start to add all this stuff up, and suddenly you get very powerful results. Every developer I know is like, their mind is blown every day with what they're able to do with this. And we're pushing it so hard and so fast right now.
So all these developers you're talking to, their mind is blown in that they are that much more productive. Everything's basically better now for a software engineer.
I think you're going to run into grumpy engineers who like doing it the old way. And, sure. Right. And this goes beyond the developer and into the product manager, the designer. I just had a meeting this morning with my team, and we're talking about, how can the designer use Claude Code and just design right into the code, rather than going through this process where the designer draws pictures in Figma. And when they're done, they're actually committing code.
The designer is essentially.
The designer is.
Right. So 2 years ago, probably maybe 18 months ago, I met this guy, VP of engineering at LinkedIn. And I think he said he had 2,000 engineers on his team. And he admitted that he was sort of frustrated with the lack of adoption and use by his engineers of any of these coding agents. So that was 18 months ago. Like, is that even tolerable? Meaning you've got a team still like not really buying into using AI coding agents and stuff like that, a team of that size. So not a startup, a big size engineering team in a kind of a legacy firm.
I mean, I hate to go to this place, but it's change management, right? They have a way of working. It goes beyond the individual developer. It goes into the process by which they create code. It involves the designers and the project managers and stuff like that. So there's that. Then there's also policies in place around what they're comfortable with as far as using AI to write code and privacy. So there's a whole bunch of layers of the way we do things.
And all that's in the way, basically. For existing engineering and software development and product teams. All that's probably in the way.
Yeah, and then you've got the coder who knows how to do their job, and you're saying, I want you to change the way you do your job. I want you to not do it that way anymore. I want you to kind of embrace this thing that you don't know how to use. And so you go from being an expert and really smart and really capable to kind of a dummy. So I think it's uncomfortable for people to kind of change their modus operandi. When you hand it over to the AI, you have no idea. I mean, it's just spitting out code. And so you're kind of looking at not so much the code that it's writing, but the result that you're getting. And that's really, really uncomfortable for developers who are responsible for the quality of that code and stuff.
Right. If I'm a CEO, I'm like, no, wait a minute. I'm losing business advantage at this point. You guys need to sort this out. Is that the right mindset, you think, for leaders when they think about their software teams and their product development teams? Like we're out of time here. We should figure this out.
If someone at one of our clients asked me, how should I think about this or what should I do to make this happen faster? I would probably say carve out some time for those people. Give them a 20% rule where it's like 20% of your time should now be spent on learning how to use these tools effectively as an individual, but also as a team. So should you be impatient? Probably, but also give those people space to have the time to do that work. So going a little bit slower now is going to pay off later, because once you do get that new workflow, it's crazy. Our team goes lightning speed. We run circles around everybody we interact with.
No, sure. I mean, listen, Section is pumping out new features now. It seems like in a day, like just crazy speed. Like no startup's building without AI, right? If you're writing software.
Probably not. As a leader, think about what's the world going to look like 2 years from now? And do you think that you're going to be writing code by hand in 2 years? Like I can tell you with
no way that you're saying that's no way, right?
No way. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe if you're writing, security code or something for spacecraft or something, but for most consumer type software
or enterprise software as well.
Yeah, enterprise software.
Humans are not writing the code.
No. And there's enough code base there for the AI to kind of understand what the context is and be able to kind of replicate that. It's hard to get your head around how much stuff is going to change because of this.
Yeah, Sam Altman just said, I think he did like an all hands or I don't know, like an office hours thing. This is how lame my life is. I actually spent an hour watching Sam Altman do like an all hands on YouTube. He talked about inference costs dropping by 100 times. So inference today is about $5 per million tokens, roughly. So he's talking about that dropping to 5 cents per million tokens by the end of 2027. That's insane. It just feels like will be no constraint around inference in terms of how most companies, if they want it, they can afford it, basically, right?
Oh, it's so worth it. A year ago, when costs were relatively high, we used to talk about the cost of AI. It just doesn't come up anymore because the things that we're building are so useful that it's very easy to justify the tokens. I mean, it's the name of the game is converting inference to value.
First of all, it's a brilliant segue, which is why I love hanging out with you and talking with you. Because as you know, I have a point of view that in the next 10 years, super companies are going to be built, companies that are highly performant, highly competitive. They basically grow faster with less people, with higher margins. And I don't think they're just software companies. I think in any sector, law firms, accounting firms, really any part of the knowledge economy, I think we'll see in 10 years that super companies have emerged. And either those are incumbents that are able to become super companies are, of course, startups. They're unencumbered by a lot of what you've already talked about. And I think about the defining feature of a super company is a company or a leadership team that's able to leverage inference into business value. So basically, sounds like you agree.
You have to start somewhere. And so the thing that most companies can get their head around is, so they have a process currently. And that process is the best that we can do given the current paradigm.
Which, by the way, could be all state-of-the-art software, and it still could suck in terms of process, right? Because it's like
100%.
Their data, their people, their legacy decisions and processes that they, whatever, that could be a cluster.
Yep. And it definitely is. And anyone who works at a big company knows that it is. So then along that process, what you'll see is it usually breaks down. There's some place where a person has to do something. Mm-hmm. And they have to make a small decision, or they have to put things together into some other document.
There's a critical human step usually.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe not so obvious, right? Or unseen even, or certainly not well documented probably as well, right?
It's someone's job. No one even thinks about it. It's just the way we do it. And it's the way we've done it for a long time. But little decisions are being made along the path. And those decisions are fully able to be made by an AI instead of a human being. Then you take what would take minutes, hours, days, and shrink it 10x, right? Or 100x or 1,000x, right? It just depends on the thing.
But you make that sound so easy, yet I would suggest besides customer service, a lot of that stuff seems to be way harder than it looks, or companies seem to be struggling more than you would imply to get that done with AI. Like, what's going on?
I've got two angles on this. So one angle is lack of imagination of just like, okay, what can we do with this tech and understanding what's possible, right? But the other thing is there's a hype engine going on out in the world where, let's say Microsoft is saying, hey, we have Microsoft Copilot Studio. Now you can automate all your work. And people start trying to use it, and it's clunky, and it doesn't really integrate with the system. And there's not really a clear sense of what the workflow even is. And it's fragile. It breaks when things happen. Someone's like, hey, we want to do AI stuff. Head of engineering come up with AI stuff to do. So head of engineering is like, well, I don't really know this that well, but I'll choose something easy. The quality doesn't really meet the user's standards. So they kind of reject it. They don't use it, fail. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's a product problem more than capabilities or engineering.
So product meaning like product management and implementation. There are probably in your mind hundreds, if not thousands, of human workflows inside of existing firms that could likely be automated well or well enough with AI today if the client knew what they were doing, if they understood the workflow, if they ran the right process the right way, they could probably get a gain from AI versus the humans in terms of existing workflows today. Like, you feel that's possible?
100%. I think there's a 3-horizon process. So horizon 1 would just be identifying those workflows and smoothing them out. So putting AI in the right place in all of the myriad workflows. And I guarantee if you go to any function at any company, you could put AI here, here, and here and make that 3 times faster.
Right. So that's AI-ifying existing workflows, which seems the least imaginative, but maybe, I guess, the easiest to do and the fastest path to ROI.
Yep. It's just process automation, old school. People know how to do this.
That's the first step or first horizon. Yeah.
Yeah. Then horizon 2 is you're like, oh, now that I've automated all that stuff and I have a better understanding of what these processes are, I might start rethinking that process. What do I need that process for anyway, right? Why am I doing this? And then you look a higher level up and you say, oh, I'm just doing this process so I can generate that report for this manager. What does the manager use that report for? You start to change the process completely, where it's not the same process anymore. It's something new that delivers more value because you have these capabilities. But what I think is going to happen in Horizon 3 is that AI takes a more active role and is changing the process itself, or has some kind of meta understanding of the business that can do its own decision making.
Right, that's mind blowing. Let's not go to Horizon 3. I mean, isn't one issue we have is that we're asking ourselves to kind of put ourselves out of work? You know, when I think about employee anxiety and resistance to AI, so that seems to be because the narrative has been it's coming for your job. But at the same time, you're also asking people to redesign and rethink how organizations function or how work gets done without them.
It's not the right framing. So I think the framing has this assumption that the process stays the same and that AI is simply automating the process.
Mm-hmm.
But what's hard to get your head around is that the process is going to change and we'll need people doing different things in that process.
There's so much we could talk about it. I want to go back to the agents automating workflows or reinventing workflows. You have a framework you use, I think, 3 Vs.
Yeah, VVV. It's viability, value, velocity. So we have a process. We go into a company. We interview people about like, how do you guys do things? We build a model essentially of like, oh, this is how this business works. And then within that model, we then will usually functionally will say, okay, so how do you do this process? And then they explain it to us. And then we say, okay, so it looks like from what we know about AI and from what you know about your business, it looks like we could do some automation here, or we could reinvent this thing. And so that's an opportunity. And we're focused on high value opportunities. And so how do you assess the value as we do this VVV analysis? So first of all, viability, can you pull it off? So that's technical. Is the technology mature enough to do this thing that we want to do? That's one question. But there's also regulatory viability. There could be cultural viability. What's going to get in the way of us doing this? Second thing is value. If we did do it, how much value would that generate? Either monetary value, growth, retention, the typical levers that a business would use. And then the third thing is velocity. How fast can we get it done? Because the ground is shifting so quickly. So you wouldn't want to say, oh, I want to bite off a year-long project based on this technology, because imagine right now, today, if you had some tech that was built on a year-old AI, it would not be that awesome. So you kind of want to look at like 3-month windows, and you want to be able to make that development nimble enough so that as the technology matures during the process of building it, you can incorporate that into the end product.
That last one seems tough though then, right? A lot of enterprise projects and workflows, if you were to redesign a workflow with AI, it feels like everything takes longer than 3 months in a large organization. That stalls out a lot of executives in terms of making these decisions because these models seem to be getting better and better all the time.
There's a buy versus build, what we always talk about, right?
Absolutely.
Why would you build your own software when you can buy something off the shelf? Well, that made a lot of sense because building your own software was so difficult and you needed expertise and you have to maintain it and all this stuff. Well, that equation is starting to change. And the other side of that equation is, why would you build your own software? Because it's perfectly suited to what you do. It totally aligns with your workflow, and you can change it to be what you need it to be whenever you need it to be. So now that's looking a lot better.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think we're going to see more companies moving that direction, saying, okay, we need bigger software teams to build our own software that we can rely on to move faster, to outgun our competition, to build that Horizon 2, Horizon 3 kind of company.
Investor sentiments would obviously confirm that today, right? All the major SaaS stocks are down and the cloud guys are up, because in the now I build it myself scenario, I still need the cloud. You feel this is likely? SaaS has peaked.
I'm not bullish on SaaS. If I put my futurist hat on, in the future, we are going to need databases. And you're going to need the cloud, and you're going to need AI systems to access those databases or manipulate that data or do whatever you want. Everything else is kind of open to me. Unclear what that looks like. It doesn't look like SaaS to me. It doesn't feel like SaaS.
Okay, I want to go back to the VVV, and I'm a CEO, and I'm looking at all these potential AI projects. Am I of the mindset, plant 1,000 seeds and see what sort of grows kind of idea as it relates to AI pilots and investments? Or I'm like, no, I got to pick 3, go long, be serious. How do you advise a CEO around, how do I make progress here beyond performative AI? But if I want to be serious about this, as you said, convert inference to business value. What's your advice to do that, inference to business value?
The first thing I ask the CEO or the leaders is like, what is your AI strategy? 9 times out of 10, there isn't one. So that's a good sign that the maturity of this space is extremely low. The way people are thinking about it is in a very, very immature way, right? Step 1 is like, just have some AI strategy, have some way to think about how you're going to integrate AI, deploy AI, use AI in your business. And it doesn't have to be sophisticated. We're going to think about how we train people. We're going to think about the software that we deploy and how we're going to evaluate it. We're going to think about how we're going to build our own software and where we're going to build it. So just like basic stuff, right?
That's not so basic for most organizations, but let's just unpack that a little bit just to get specific. in your mind, is a first step give everybody a good LLM? Like if you were CEO of a 1,000-person company, would your advice be everybody gets a good LLM in terms of employees? Is that a necessary ingredient?
If I go to a big company and they have not deployed LLMs to everybody, or they don't have a policy for that, then that's a pretty good sign that they're not going to be successful in this initiative with us.
Okay.
Because it means that they don't have a feel for the technology. It means that users don't know what to expect from it. They're not going to be good judges of quality on the output, right? It's like putting a 16-year-old in a Ferrari, right? It's not going to end well.
So your point is that workforce needs to be AI enabled, and they're the ones that will probably figure out some of these automations, or like what goes from there? What happens after that?
All these things have to happen at the same time, unfortunately, because everything's moving quickly. But let's just say this, if you take the employee piece, giving your employees some education or some training, giving them the tools so they're like, oh, I'm using these tools, but I'm hitting a wall because ChatGPT doesn't connect to our database, or ChatGPT doesn't connect to Salesforce, or for whatever the thing is that they're trying to do. And they're saying, I can't do it. I'm hitting the wall. And so that's telling you, oh, there's a process which could be improved. There's something going on there. That's a hot spot. And we should look into that and see, like, what can we do? And that's usually where you step into kind of the next layer, which is automation, or
that second time horizon.
So I think that kind of bubbling up is a slow process, and it usually will uncover the lowest level automations or the lowest level productivity increases. The stuff that's like the high value stuff has to be more thoughtfully attacked and identified.
Kind of the AI SWAT team sort of idea, or your head of AI is maybe picking those smaller number of projects.
Yeah. And you don't have to start building that from day one, but starting to think with that mentality sets you up really well for your next steps as you move forward, because you're thinking like, okay, I'm going to have a layer of AI at my company, not just little points of light.
So when you think about future super companies, if we use that sort of expression or description of high performing companies, I assume they're using AI internally, and I assume they're also using AI externally, meaning they've changed their product or service with AI. Do you think it's both? You got to be operating at the maximum efficiency internally, reinventing workflows, eliminating workflows, kind of thing. And if you're making knowledge, is it you're also radically improving your product or service with AI and maybe even changing the business model? Do you think super companies do both?
Certainly the internal piece, right? Because that's how you become a more efficient company. That's how you move faster and innovate. Software ate the world.
Right.
So every place where that software is touching something, there's probably an AI opportunities. And AI is going to eat all the software that ate the world.
I like that. AI will eat the software that ate the world. So I like that. So I'd like you to end us with advice for the leader and the individual contributor. Just riff a bit on what you want them to do, say, and how to behave in this moment.
Everybody should be curious and be trying to learn about what this technology is and what it isn't. I think CEOs and leaders need to give their organizations time to learn, to experiment, to play. I know it's painful because you want everyone to be productive. So it's hard to kind of give that space, but it's also like an environment, a culture of innovation, fostering that culture. Mm-hmm. I think for new hires, massively embrace and experiment. Just ask yourself, can I do it with this thing? Like, if I can, is it good? What went wrong? How can I fix that? What other tool can I use? How can I put these things together? Like, those kinds of things are going to turn you into a super employee.
Basically, own your own skills, I guess, own your own experimentation. I would say, Ed, if you work for a company that doesn't give you that space, I think if your employer is not willing to do it, you need to do it yourself. And that might mean nights and weekends kind of thing, right? There's a moment of too much opportunity and too much risk not to be that super employee.
Well, one of the reasons I like working with you is because you oftentimes identify these moments of change and power like ahead of others, right? So at Section 2 years ago, you were like, we're going to go all in on AI. This is a powerful technology. Everybody at this company needs to learn to use AI. That mandate and that sort of permission is huge in the organization to say, like, we're doing this. I'm all in this as the CEO or as the leader. I'm all in on this. I give you permission. I give you the mandate. Like, let's go.
Yeah, listen, I want to be a super company. Bottom line, right? I want Section to be a super company. And I want to model the behavior that we ask others to follow. And also that'll make us more valuable. And that'll make my stock options and my employees' stock options more valuable when it comes to creating an exit. Yeah, I'm all in. Listen, thanks for joining.
That's been awesome. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Every time I hang out with Ed, I realize that building with AI, specifically agents, is harder than it looks, but will be more transformative than it looks. As he said, great leaders will turn inference into business value, and that will determine winners and losers. I loved his 3V framework: viability, velocity, and value. Doesn't matter what order, I don't think. Just remember those 3Vs: viability, velocity, and value when you evaluate AI projects. I also like the way he framed the 3 time horizons for AI innovation or transformation. That first time horizon now, which is basically automating or improving human workflows, human process with AI to increase efficiency, reduce friction. His second time horizon was basically reinvent that workflow ground up with AI. But now it's really been reconceived or reinvented with AI. And then that third longer term time horizon, relying on likely more performant AI, more capable, more memory, more context, kind of reinvent the business process and maybe in some cases eliminate it. Also, hanging out with Ed reminds me, work with people you enjoy working with, smart people, curious people, those with empathy and good humanity that you want to hang out with and that you want to play tennis with. That's Ed for me. Thank you for listening to AI Truth Serum. Next episode, I'll be talking with technology journalist Tim Lee. I really appreciate Tim's clear-eyed, no bullshit, data-driven assessment of AI technologies. He's been a particularly keen observer of Waymo and autonomous driving, but also AI more broadly and the impact of these technologies on the way we work. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And if you've got a second right now, leave us a rating or review. It'll help others find the podcast and keep me employed. We'll talk soon.